This is I, CptWoozle, back again. Friday night, 8:27 p.m. I'm here eating M&Ms, playing Bounty of One. Then we'll write some code. So I've been playing Bounty of One for, well, since I got it last week. Or earlier in the week. And I made a bit of progress. So, let's see if we can make any more. It's a much simpler progression, I feel like. Much simpler progression. I do like the character selection, but what I don't like is that there's no other levels. But maybe it's because it's the first version. So I really would love it if there was another like level. So let's go ahead and I've been playing around with Natoko and Robert.3. So let's see if we can win Infamy 5 with Robert.3. Nom nom nom. Let's see. The dash is still nice. I've opened up most of the characters. I like this character because it you have the turret, which provides like another method of attacking, and you can just kind of run around and pick up stuff. So I end up liking this particular character for that. And I've been going with move speed on him just because I end up picking up a lot of stuff. So allows me to kind of evade and pick up the tokens to level. And I've been stacking health too, because usually I pick up the there's a buff where for every piece of health you get like 10% you get like 10% damage. So that's what I've been doing. It's not bad. I'm just kind of running around now though. Let's up the, I want all of it. Let's go for attack speed. Let's increase the range. See if we can get this guy to kite out for the last few hits. There we go. See if we get something good. The lightning strike isn't bad, and I move a lot on this character, so I'll take it. Nice. A lot more attack speed, please. Natoko's ability is really nice on this character. You have to be careful though, because what you start to run into is that last game I took one too many attack speed buffs. I don't like any of these. I will take the increased health, though. Ooh. And more attack speed. The biggest trouble you run into is you take a lot of attack speed, and then you don't take a lot of attack speed and no damage. It gets harder and harder. Let's go for move speed. So, as a developer, one of the things that I think is really cool these days is it's really great to see more and more developers actually on platforms such as Twitch and what have you talking about their experiences. Because I think some people only get like a percentage view of like what's actually going on within industries. They don't get to see some of the other aspects of it. Yeah, I'll take the damage. So it's really nice to kind of see other people out there. Primogen, I guess it's Primogen. A couple others. I don't know the guy's name, but he used to be a Blizzard dev, and I should know it. Like he's in the field, but like I don't interact with a lot of that stuff. That's the point. I'm pretty much a corporate lackey these days, and I like it. I'm not against it. I want the benefits. I like some of the challenges it brings me, and it depends on the company. But I've been corporate for so long. I've never done any game development in a professional sense. Go for attack speed. More attack speed. So, no, I've been a corporate lackey, and I'm not. I think the other aspect is that the other perspective that would be nice to see out there is perspectives from people who are not in such larger companies, because I think most people, not all, are going to be working for smaller companies. It's just what's available. Like some of the bigger companies don't always hire, and you just can't always get jobs. So if you're lucky, you work for a large company. But if you're not lucky, you work for a smaller company. But it's always nice to see representation out there. Currently gain 10% attack speed every. So again, it is nice to see more and more developers represented and being talked about out in the field and sharing their experiences. So I'm definitely a big fan of that. I do wish that some smaller developers talked about their experiences rather than it always being like people used to work at Blizzard and other large companies. And I get it. I guess everyone wants to work at Blizzard and other large companies, but I feel like they don't. Like Blizzard and many of those other large companies, Amazon, Netflix, etc., are known for being very, 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 very demanding of their developers. So, being able to kind of see and hear from smaller developers, I think, is always a good thing. And I find that there aren't as many people talking on the small development space. I don't know, maybe small development just isn't nearly as interesting for people but it's, I think, where a lot of people kind of cut their teeth and ultimately end up, just because they find that though your Amazons, your Googles, your Netflix are totally doing, I guess you could say, some of the cutting edge stuff. That cutting edge stuff comes with a lot of emotional baggage, as the companies demand a lot from you. Hopefully, it's all good, but ooh, a minion. I'll take the minion. So it's always nice to see more developers out there. So I'm happy to be out here talking about development and what's going on in this space. One of the things that I've been seeing a lot lately is that the market's just a bit flooded. I think that's one of the things that's a little unfair. Things like boot camps and what have you have kind of created this mindset that, like, suddenly there's all of these jobs, but and there are a lot, but not as many as there once was. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if they'll come back. I don't really know if the jobs will come back. I mean, I think the other thing you're starting to see is more independent developers starting to build a product and realize that there's a space for them in the environment. But we'll see. Damage. Like, I'm trying to build a few products of my own, but we'll see how it goes. Oof, I'm really taking a beating here. But I do think, I don't think we'll get as many developers back into spaces as once was. I think many of us are just kind of in a different mindset, in a different space these days. And there's so many developers out there that, like, companies don't need to care past the point. You wake up and you've 27 different developers. Let's try this guy. You have 2,700 different developers. You look on LinkedIn, there's 100 people who've applied for one job. So I don't know if it'll ever really come back to that. Once was. Hold on a second. I don't know if it'll ever come back to the way that it once was. I think it's nice to think so, but I don't think it will. We need to see growth in a bunch of different areas, and I don't think I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that what needs to happen is there needs to be some fundamental changes, and I think we're in a weird spot in the world where those fundamental changes are kind of in the middle. So you start to see people just feel overwhelmed in terms of spending and what have you. They think things are very overpriced, which I completely agree with. So for, I think, some of the jobs to come back, people need to feel okay spending more money, and I don't know if they actually are just yet. So we'll see how it goes. What shall I pick? Gain armor protection from one hit. All right, let's take that one. Yeah, one more choice. I do like this character. That can dashes, or yeah, I'll take the dashes. But yeah, I just don't think some of the development jobs are going to come back nearly as quickly as people I think they will. I think that we're going to have a few more years where people are just like, um, they're just not spending the money, and because they're not spending the money, companies don't really have a reason to. Um, they don't really have a reason to spend the money, so they're not. They're just kind of using existing developers or trying to lowball everyone. More attack speed. But we'll see what happens. Like, no one can tell the future. Let's reduce cooldowns. And especially with things like I think people are trying to take advantage of that to the best that they can. Um, so, hmm, I don't think you're going to see companies just start rehiring as much as the promises once were. Damage. Let's try to go for more damage to this build, since as things get closer. Let's see how that goes. Shots pierce to enemies. Not bad. Another heart. Heal up. Mm-hmm. Reduce cooldowns. I'm hoping that I get the cooldown. There's a boost that you can get where yeah, we'll see whether I get it. Um, that for every time you dash, um, yeah, we'll take this one. The aura admit there's a buff that every time you dash you heal. Let's take the emits an aura. I find that kind of nice. And then damage. But yeah, I just don't think the developer jobs are going to come back nearly as fast as they once appeared. Again, especially now that we're trying to leverage AI, I think there'll be a point where we'll need it. Still movement speed. But I just don't know what's going to happen. But we'll see. I don't think AI solves the problems that people think it does. Um, so we'll see how it goes, though. Damage! Damage, damage, damage. Um, let's reduce cooldowns. And let's go from there. In case anyone's interested, this is, I think, called Bullet of One. Let's do a bit more damage. Not bad. Not bad. All right. Always start your deputies, gaining immunity, deals in area. Oh, deals damage in an area. I have to do gas. Mm. Hmm. I'm gonna take the lucky star. More damage. I wish the dodge worked a bit better. So like you move anticipating them attacking you, and it then attacks you anyway. Let's go for more movement speed. Nice. Let's see if we can gain another level here. More damage. Pick up some coins. I gotta find a way to deal with that. I'm just getting beat up here. More attack speed. Let's pick you up. I think I'm gonna die. Yeah, I think I might die. Maybe not. Maybe I survive this and get my full health back. No. Alright. I'll play for another 10 minutes and then switch over to some coding. Try Sarah. I actually really love to hear from some other developers. A lot of the other developers I know are they don't write code nearly as much, especially as they get older. They have families. They have families. They hang out with their friends. They don't really spend much time writing code outside of work. So we'll see. But I'd love to hear if anyone is a developer on their own. I'd love to hear their opinions of how things are going and their perspectives on the industry. I see the aiming is off on this one. I feel like it will like not hit the things that are closest to you sometimes, even though it's right in front of you. I will take the shield and more damage. Attack speed. But no, I'd love to hear from some other developers in this space. And not on weird hot takes either. Some of the other developers are always like giving weird hot takes on things, and I'm just like, I don't know. But again, maybe these are discussions for like developers on, from a team perspective. Like I get some of those where you're discussing things like, what's better and how should we do our folder structures and so forth and so on. But anyway, each time you can level, more move speed. More move speed. Yeah. Took a lot. I literally took a hit just to get the heart, then lost it. Yeah, I think I'm going to die again. Let's up my maximum health and let's see if we can survive. I don't know. That means I'm going to get Super Tom or something. That's the character's name. More move speed. Deal 50 more damage. Let's take the Pierce. I think that's helping. Let's go for more health. I'm not getting any health, but at least I'm not dying. Let's see how long I survive. I will probably need to pause and pick up some coins soon. Yep. Let's increase maximum health. Shit. Ooh. That shield is so lucky for that shield. I keep forgetting I have a dash ability, and I keep like trying not to use it. And I'm not sure what to build next. Yes. Let's see what I get. I don't know. None of those are good options. I'm not happy with the option choices that they give you in this game. It's a bit of a crapshoot, I find. If you're lucky, you get a few things here and there, but like, it's not that great. All right, let's write some code. So this is the code that I started before. So the idea behind this is building kind of a restaurant application. And for a restaurant application, you want to think about a couple of different things. First, you want to think about it from, I guess, 3 to 4 different approaches. Now, a lot of new developers are always try to go big, and then I would probably say that you should probably lean towards what would we call an MVP, or a minimal viable product. They talk about this a lot in startup culture, and a lot of people get kind of grandiose ideas, like they want to do all of this stuff and all of that stuff. Go for simple. Start off from a perspective of just one restaurant. and think about it in 3 different ways. So one from the customer approach. So a customer is going to go to the website and they're going to see a menu. They're going to be able to log in. They're going to be able to log out. They're going to want to be able to see their orders and make a reservation. And kind of behind the scenes approach for that is you're going to need to see have a user. And for the menu itself, you're going to have menu items and categories. Now that's the customer approach. Then the second approach is kind of from the manager approach. You're going to have a user as well. They're going to need to be able to edit the menu. So, edit the menu, which goes back to menu items and categories. They also need to be able to log in, log out. They need to be able to see orders and potentially edit them. And they need to be able to see reservations and potentially edit them. And see my reservations and see and edit my reservations. And then for the manager, you want to be able to see all orders, edit all orders, and then same thing with the reservations, see all reservations, and edit all reservations. So those are the kind of 2 approaches to start. The third one is going to be one that you may not think of, and that is, and this is something that you may not necessarily need to tackle in your first approach. I would save this as a, this would be a bonus for your minimum viable product. So, is a kind of a kitchen approach. And then the bonus, the 4th bonus might be the server or host approach. And the difference between those 2 approaches is as follows. For the kitchen approach, they need to be able to log in and log out. They won't be able to edit the menu. All they're going to be able to is see all orders and edit all orders. But we tackle some of those in the above. And then for the server host, they're going to be able to log in, log out, but they're only going to be able to see all reservations and edit all reservations. And again, some of these are tackled by the above from the manager and the customer. So knowing that, we're going to have similar approaches here, one of the things that you might want to incorporate or think about is maybe adding in some type of roles. But roles can be kind of complicated. So for the minimum viable product, we're really just going to worry about these first 2 pieces. And we've kind of done some of that already. So we have from the customer approach, we do have the ability to log in and log out. So this is register as a user. This logs in the user. So there's your log in and log out. And that should handle everyone. We're not going to worry about roles just yet. There is a separate login for admin, and that's going to be handled here. We haven't written any of our controllers yet. But we will probably start to write them. We do want to make sure that we tackle these. We have our reservation routes. And the reservations are going to be get rid of reservations. And that's going to handle the ability to, depending upon what permissions you have, get all the reservations or get your specific reservations. When someone needs to create reservations, it's going to be the same. And so you have all of this information, reservation ID, user ID, so forth and so on. If you really feel so inclined, you can kind of join this information together. people like to use the one-to-many. I'm not always the biggest fan of that for the following reasons. The upside of it is that so you might have, like, a user can have multiple reservations. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The advantages of it is that you will never have a reservation without a user ID. That's the advantage of it. The disadvantage of that is that if you need to do any type of system where, let's say, someone needs to generate a reservation without a user ID, you're kind of caught. So you may want to force that, but you can use code to kind of force that and then clean it up afterwards, and then always create that combo to start. But I like to kind of create it initially so that we have that set up. So from there, you have the reservations. You can see them all, edit them all. What we don't have is the ability to do any orders yet. So let's write out what that would look like. We'll call it order.routes.js. And we can actually just copy similarly to what we have here, and just copy it all. Come over here to order routes. Now, what's up here is going to stay the same. And by just pointing it to routes, by the way, you don't have to manually loop through and add all of these. We did add them here, and there is a much better way of doing this. But by putting them here, we're perfectly fine. So we're going to do orders. It's going to come from order routes, which we've already set up. Let's go ahead and do this. So we do want to be able to get orders, and this will handle both getting my orders and all orders. We do want to be able to create an order, and we want to be able to edit an order, and we'll get to some of the other changes in a moment. And finally, we want to be able to delete an order. Now, very rarely do we want to be able to delete an order once it's already been filled, but we'll have to incorporate those into our business rules. For every order that we want to edit, we're going to need an order ID. When we want to delete a specific order ID. And now lastly, you want to limit orders to only people that are logged in. Normally in a restaurant situation you wouldn't, but we can compensate for that later. Because then we're going to have to generate an order ID. And that brings us back to the previous problem that I mentioned earlier, where by forcing either the order item or the reservation to have a user ID, it means you can't handle situations where you don't have one. So we want to let people be able to make reservations without having to quote-unquote log in. Now, that can be complex, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you might want to deal with, so you don't want spammers, so forth and so on, getting in. But that might be one of the things. Now, handling spam can be complicated. You can try to use things like having a bot automatically fill out a form. We'll try to fill out all the pieces of the form. But if you want to intelligently write a bot that does that, you yourself would go and look at the form, inspect it, and have the system only fill out the pieces that are on the page, and then you won't fall prey to that. One of the things they do is put a check digit or some type of check input, where bots, when they go to fill out a form, will inspect the HTML and try to fill in all the inputs. You can make an intelligent bot that won't do that. And so they'll make a hidden input, and then the bot will try to fill it out, and if it does, you know it's a bot. But anyway, back to the order routes. Let's put these side by side so we can see what an order is going to consist of. So an order when it comes in. We're not going to have anything for get orders, but we are going to have an order body that is required. We are going to require an order date. And I guess we can really just say now, but potentially someone could order in the future. So we're going to say order date, and we'll say order date is required. They're not going to be the ones that determine an order total. We are. They're not going to be the ones that determine whether an order is started or not. We are. Same thing with whether it's order complete. Who did the ordering? We'll determine that as well. We are going to insist upon a phone number. And because we're making a fake reservation system and a fake restaurant system, normally we'd have an approach that will allow people to pay on the website. In this particular instance, we're not. So whether someone hasn't paid or not will be determined by a manager or a host, but more than likely by a manager. So they'll log in when a person picks up their order. They'll mark it as paid. So we really only need the order date and the phone. And the last thing that we want is a bunch of order items. And let's double check and see whether they allow for that. So that's going to more than likely be an array. So let's look at some of the validation rules for express validation. Express validator, body check for array. Validate an array of objects. So let's take a look. Start out empty. Let's look at some more documentation. So let's see, validation chain. I don't know. Let's ask ChatGPT. And I do like using ChatGPT for asking like documentation questions and examples. So let's pull it up. So using Express Validator, how can I verify that the property items of the body is an array that is not empty? So there we go. Is an array, minimum 1. So here, we'll keep having items. We'll say is array, minimum. And with message. I like this. So, and how can I escape the items in the array? So let's take a look at that. Hmm? So that's one way to escape it. All right. So now we're here. I'm going to ask one other question. SQLize. Parameterize. Parameterize my input. So it's like it's automatic. Cool. So we technically probably don't have to worry about it. So we won't worry about escaping it. I'll handle items. This is what we expect when we do an order. That goes into our create order. For order ID, it's going to be the same, but we expect an order ID. We need to change this to phone. And we need to say order ID is required. And now we could say order param validation rules. And that goes here. And you go here. And you go here. We'll say order edit validation rules. And you go here. Sometimes the TypeScript validation comes and gets put in here for native JavaScript. It makes you a little grumpy, but it's all good. We won't create these just yet. These are just the routes. So let's go back and take a look. We do need to create two others that are just going to be used by the manager. And that's the menu items, ability to edit them, and the categories, and the ability to edit those. So let's do the same thing. And once you do one or two and have the general idea down, it's just going to be a copy and paste for the most part. You'll do some editing, but like it's pretty easy from there. So the next is menu item.routes.js, and then we'll do categories. Categories actually is probably easier. So we'll do reservation category dot routes.js. Same thing. We want to be able to get all the categories. So get categories, create a category, edit a category if need be. Editing always gets to be complicated, especially if you delete one, because you're going to have to go through and find all of the existing items that have connected to that category and delete those too. So that can get complicated. Finally, we want to be able to delete a category. We're going to rename you. You're going to be category ID. Delete you, or edit you, your category ID as well. And some of these same rules apply. So for category, we'll move you over here so we can see you. Everything looks pretty all right. We're going to require a category ID. And the only thing this really requires is category name. This can't be empty. And we just say category name is required. And we'll rename all of these to category, category, and category. So these rules apply to the body here, here, for parameters, they go here and here. And finally, for the edit rules, they go here. And then the last one we have to create is menu item. So you have our menu item routes.js. And it's going to be, again, very similar. So we can take this. And for almost all of these, we are going to need some type of validation. The menu is probably the only one we don't. So there are a couple things that I forgot. We might try to create the order items, but it's a maybe. We definitely will create the menu, and we definitely will create the menu items. New file. We'll do menu item.routes.js. Oh, I already created it, I guess. Yeah. Paste you in here. Similar layout. Get menu items. And again, a lot of this is just rinse and repeat. It gets a little old after a while. This is one of the things that maybe AI can help with, is to kind of reduce some of these repetitive tasks. But you may find that by the time you finish asking the question, you could have typed all of this out, because a lot of it's very similar. Get menu items, create menu item, edit menu item, delete menu item. Lastly, let's take a look at menu item. What's required for a menu item? We are going to insist that they give you a category ID. Category ID is required. We're going to insist they give us an item name, an item description, and a price. We are going to insist they give us a menu item ID. Ooh, I messed up. This is supposed to say category ID is required. So we'll say menu item ID is required. And you shall be called menu item param. Menu item, and then we're going to clean up our wording here. So these are the param rules. These will be the body rules. And let's get these in place so we have them already ready when we're done. Everything's going to be verified. Let's put in our wording. Category ID is required. Item name is required. Item description is required. And finally, price is required. Yeah, that looks right. And then lastly, for menu is going to be a bit shorter, because the only thing they ever really need to be able to get is the menu itself. You can get the full thing and just keep it, or you can allow people to get individual items or individual categories. If we wanted to think about efficiency, we would just cache. So we would get the menu items each time and do that. And that would probably be the most efficient way. But rather than do that, we're going to have it so that a person gets a menu item by category. We'll let the front end determine what the categories, we'll let the back end determine what the categories are. And then as they click, we'll allow them to go through each one. So there's really only one endpoint in the menu. You see that here. There's only one menu. So let's go ahead and create that. Menu, or I'm sorry, there's only one particular endpoint, menu.routes.js. We can again copy, paste. No verification token is needed for this one. Anyone can get the menu. Get menu, and they're going to pass back a category ID. I can't delete the menu. I can't edit a menu. So the only thing we really need here is the param verification. And category ID. Category ID is required. Yet menu. So this will kind of prepare us for the routes. Let's come back over here to our index. Everything is generally set up. We can comment this one out for right now. There's going to be no order items. We might add one in, but for right now, we can kind of keep it pretty simple. Now, we're missing all the controllers for right now. And we're missing our DB URL and a couple other things. So let's open up our environmental variable. Let's add in a DB URL, a dialect, and a protocol. For our dialect, give me a second. Let's open up a recent project. Yeah. So for these types of things, it's all going to be the same. Dialect Postgres, protocol Postgres. And for mine, I decided to go super simple. DB URL, restaurant. I don't really think anyone's going to hack into my computer and try to use restaurant. It's going to be a very temporary database, but there you go. So there's your URL for your SQLize over here. Let's double check our package.json. Yep, there's SQLize. Let's build our controllers. So let's just start from the top. And there are a couple things you want to think about. Every time you make one of these, you want to think about a couple different cases. So we want to be able to get all the categories. There really is only one reason and one group of people that can get the categories. The front end can get it. And in that particular case, let's change it up. And you see, these are some of the things you need to think about. I was thinking, oh, who's going to get the categories? Oh, well, only one people. Wrong. Clearly, anyone should be able to get all the categories so that they can see the menu items. But only certain people can create, edit, and delete the categories. So, for our kit categories, we'll come over here to our controllers and create a new one. We'll call you category.controller.js. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and include our model. Now, there are a couple different ways in which you could do this. If you're expecting to use multiple models, you can just import the models and then export them individually. If you wanted to use just, let's say here, category, you could just say category and do require models.category. Now, in our particular instance, we're going to want to include menu items, and why that is because when we delete a category, we may need to delete the menu item associated with it. So in that particular instance, I would just bring in the DB itself. And again, there's two different approaches. So you could just do db.category and then do category, and then just do the same thing with reservation. Menu item. So you would do menu item is equal to require. And you could do that either way. You could do it this way, or you could bring in the whole DB like this. And then specifically say category equals db.category. There's not I don't think anyone's going to care one way or the other. It's just a preference at that particular point. We do need to bring in our validator. We're going to bring in our validation results. And we'll see how that works in a moment. We're going to bring in Express Validator. And that's it. Now, The endpoint that we were just trying to create is called getCategories. We're going to say exports. We're going to say getCategories because that's what the name of the function is. We're going to make it asynchronous so that way we can do await calls. There's our request. There's our response. We'll use the arrow notation. So this would be a function that uses arrow notation. And then we will use a try catch. Now, we don't necessarily have to, but I think it's a generally good practice too. When you're first starting off, people don't, but it does mean that if there are any errors that occur, you will miss them. Now, we'll keep our errors pretty uniform, and ultimately, if you're trying to do what's known as do not repeat yourself, dry, don't repeat yourself, you might actually try to come up with a generic way of catching all of your errors all at once. I'm going to go kind of about the lazy and definitely not efficient way of just not. Now you can either do a return res or you can just say res.status if this is the last bit of code that you're going to return. So you could say res.status and we're going to send. I'm going to send all of them as errors and we'll say it's going to be equal to error.message. So that's what will happen if we catch an error. It will send back that error. Now let's go ahead and get all of our categories. So you can do it two ways, but you can either use await, then there's really no need for the async, or you can use the .then method. And the two approaches look this way. So you could say category, and we're going to get them all. So we're going to say find all. And then if we wanted to, again, there's nothing to, it's not for a particular user, we would then do .then. We would, once it's finished, we would get the response, which is just going to be the list of categories. And then we would do something with it. And it might look a little cleaner this way. So .then categories, we could output them and so forth and so on. Now, there's nothing wrong with that method. That method is fine. I've seen more people get taught this method where their const categories is going to be equal to await. And then you say category.findAll. That gets you all the categories. And then you can return a status of 200 and send back the list of categories. You could, in theory, to make it one line, do this if you really wanted to. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Some people just don't like to do it that approach. It kind of keeps everything in one line, and it can be a little bit more difficult for beginning developers to understand what's going on. So we'll just keep it this way. So there's our first approach of get category. Now, one of the things that we didn't do is any error checking in here. Then that's because this particular endpoint doesn't have any. There's nothing to really check. We come back over here to our category get routes, and we just tell it that we want to import it. And all that's going to do is create this const get categories and bring in our categories over here. Now, WebStorm is nice in that it does this for us, so kudos to WebStorm. And I definitely suggest people use it if they like. It's not a paid promotion or anything. I just really like WebStorm. Let's go ahead and do a couple other pieces here. We'll mock them out for right now, or at least start them, and then kind of finish them in a moment. So we want get category or create category, edit category, and then finally delete category. So that's what they should look like. Let's go ahead and mock them out so they'll be ready when we actually go to finish them. And they're all pretty much going to start off the same. And again, this is where the do not repeat yourself can kind of come in handy, and you might come up with another way of doing that. And all I'm doing right now is just importing them here, so you can see here is their category, create category, edit category, and delete category. You have all these right along the top here, and we've imported them in, so they're generally ready to use. Let's go ahead and reopen you up here. Now here is where the express validator comes into play. We can say right here, what you'll do is you'll say you'll get your errors is going to be equal to validation results from the request, because the validator, the express validator, got all of the errors and put them into the validation results. And we can do this. We can say if errors, if it's not empty, if the errors are not empty, if we actually do have errors, then go ahead and we can return res.status. Now be careful, 400, be careful. One of the things that can catch people early on is the response. If it's the last item in this particular controller, then it's fine. But if you have other things underneath, it can hit this endpoint. Let's say you just had the res return, the res.status 400, and hold on. We'll actually send errors.array. We'll send the errors back. But let's say you had this, and then you had more code under it. It could continue to execute down. It will have returned one thing as the response, and then continue to execute the code. So I like to do this, return res.status, so that it will exit out of this particular function and return the response as well, rather than just returning the response, then continuing down and trying to complete the rest of the application. So we validated the input already. Category itself doesn't have anything but a category name, and it will automatically create our category ID. So for the most part, we'll just do the same thing. We'll do a try catch. Again, you're repeating yourself, so be careful. If you can find another way to do it, great. If not, that's okay. We're not attaching a user ID to this. One of the things that we do want to check, and I mentioned it before in the first stream on Monday, is make sure the user is an admin. So here's another thing of why you might use multiple in here. So you might have user equals require, get the user first, make sure the user is an admin. So we'll do const user, and remember, in our route, we have this create category, we have this verify access token. And verify access token takes the token, validates it, and puts the user ID into the request. So now we can say user is going to be, we'll go to await, we're going to user.findOne, where, and in this particular instance, I believe our user ID is called user ID. There it is. Where user ID equals, and actually it's not equals. We need to do the following. So many layers. There it is. So the user ID is equal to request, not user ID. And remember, that comes from over here, when it hits our route, it's going to hit our middleware. It's going to validate the body, but it's also going to hit our verify access token middleware, which again will decode the JSON web token and save the user ID into the request. So when we come back over here to our controller, by the time we get to this point, request.userid will be equal to the user ID of whatever JSON web token has been given to the user. We'll go ahead and wait for the user, and then get the user. In here, we'll validate the user is an admin. Now, how will we do that? I believe on my user, oh, I didn't. I should have added an is admin column. So we'll go ahead and do it now. Type data types. It's going to be a Boolean, so it's either going to be true or false. Allow null to be false, so it's not going to be false. And the default value is false. So it's going to start off as false unless we specifically change it. So how do we validate the user as an admin? If user.isAdmin or is not, and we'll do the not. If if they're not is admin, then we're going to do a res.status, and the status for unauthorized, and we have it over here in auth, is 401. So that's unauthorized. So we'll say status of 401, and we'll send back, and we'll match here. We'll say error unauthorized. So we'll keep the formatting the same for all of our errors, and voila. If they do have permission, then all we have to do is, and again, you can choose to do this yourself. We'll say const, we'll say new category. And now, keep in mind, there are a couple things we want to check. We don't want to, and I don't have it in here right now, but we want to not let people put in duplicate categories. So let's add a unique tag to our category name. Come back over here, similar to what we have in user. We say unique, and we say category name is already in use. Voila. And that will keep people from creating duplicate categories. So we'll say the new category. And now what's the other thing we might want to do is we may want to format all of our categories so they are the exact same. So what we're going to do is we're going to say our requests dot category name is going to equal our request dot category name dot to uppercase, so that all of our category names are uppercase. And now we can go ahead and say await category dot create request dot body. And that will go ahead and put the category name in, and there's no user ID, so there's nothing we have to worry about. And then we can choose to send it back to the front end. So we could say return, and it's just probably good habit to just keep yourself doing a return and a return. So we'll keep that habit since we're doing it everywhere else. We'll say return res.status of 200. And we'll send back the new category. So there we go. So now we have our category that creates it. The edit category is going to be something similar. So we'll take it. We'll take most of create category and we'll paste it in here. We still want our validation. We still want to validate the user. But in this particular instance, what we're going to do is we're going to find the category first. If we can't find the category, then there's a problem. So let's find it first. We'll call it found category. We'll say await category dot find one. And now remember, part of what we have in this particular instance is we have the parameter of the, come back over here to routes. Remember, we have this category ID that we're going to have as a parameter. So now we can just say where, and the ID that we're looking for, let me double check. I called it category ID. So the ideas we're looking for is category ID is going to be equal to request.params.category ID. So that's going to attempt to find our category, and we'll stop it if we don't find it. So if there's no found category, we'll say return res.status. And here's our classic 404, not found. And we'll send the error. Again, try to think of a way to not repeat yourself. And we say category not found. And that'll just kick us out. I'm putting in semicolons. You don't have to in JavaScript, but I've gotten kind of used to it dealing with a bunch of TypeScript. But let's say we did find the category. If we did, we're going to take our category, don't forget, uppercase it, and then we're going to attempt to update the found category with our request.body. And if it's successful, we're going to send back the found category. Now, I believe there's no nice way of getting the category from the update, but let's see. Maybe there is. Let's see. Sequelize, update, and return value. Let's see. Well, it looks like it might be possible. So by default, it looks like you can do it. You just have to say returning true. Looks like somebody wrote something. Returning true. So if we do that, we get back this. So we should be able to get back, and we can play around with it. We do an update. And then we could say, I think, is it returning true? I guess we would need to put it inside. So curly bracket. No, that's doing the one thing. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see if ChatGPT knows, because I don't know off the top of my head. How can I modify this statement to get the updated model? Let's see. Oh, I have to put it in a curly bracket. I see. So we would do, looks like it's const updated category equals await curly bracket returning true. And then I should spell category correctly. And then return .res status the updated category. There we go. Also, I should spell updated correctly because I'm terrible at this. So, updated category. Awesome. And then lastly is our delete. Similar rules apply. We add in our validation. It's still going to be a try catch, but much less code. I don't know how much less. Again, validation. And there's duplicate code. Validate the user. Admin. We attempt to find one if there's no found category. And there isn't much to do here. So we did find the category. If we did find the category, then what we're going to do is say await category dot destroy. And now you can try and just straight destroy. But if it's not there, I'd still rather kind of keep this check in place. Go ahead and delete it. Now, before you do that, keep in mind, and we'll write it here, before you delete a category, you should delete all menu items connected to the category. And now here's where menu item comes into play. Now this you can do. So you can do this as kind of a fire and forget. So then you could say destroy. And now I don't know off the top of my head, but you can always look it up. There's nice examples, but this is where, you know, ChatGPT can excel, giving you examples. So let's ask, say, using CptWoozle, how can I destroy multiple rows where the category ID matches? You can just ask. So there you go. Looks like we do the same thing. So we'll destroy where the category ID matches. Done. And then you destroy the category. And there isn't anything to send back. You could just send back true or success. Something along those lines. So there we go. And there's our delete. We've done a lot of duplicate code here, so it might be a good idea to kind of find. So an approach to this might be to create a smaller function up here as a separate function that says get user. I know. You could do something like is admin user as a function that accepts a user ID, and then it does this code for you. So you get the user ID, and if it's 1, so it will, and we can accept in this our res. We change this over to be the user ID. We make you an async function Otherwise, we return true. And you could kind of have it as a fire and forget. So you could fire it, and if it kicks you back out, so I guess you could have it, since it's inside the try catch, you could just have it kick a person out with a 401. But let's ask ChatGPT. Why not? Let's get the opinion of the ChatGPT. I use this chunk of code in multiple places. How can I make it into a separate function? And we might actually move it as express middleware. And that's not a bad idea. Or we could put it as a utility function. Yeah, see? So let's move this into a utility function. Controllers, routes, index, models. So let's do you as a new file as dbutils.js. And in this particular instance, we need to include const user is equal to require model user. Then we don't have to repeat you everywhere. Yeah. So now we have no need for you. And now you could do this as middleware. Some people think that's a better idea. I don't have a strong feeling about it at the moment. I'm just going with this, and we'll use it here. And we could say simply const user equals, still going to be in a wait, check if user is admin, request.userid. And dbutils export. I believe it might be export async function, and then insert. So now we export it. Since it's exported, it's available up here. And we don't really use user. It's one of the reasons why. We could just do an await here every time. Yeah. And then we're not repeating. Find one, find one, find one. Yeah, no. What are you doing? Oh, I moved you outside, so you're good. Doesn't like find one for some reason. That's weird, but I don't know if I care. Category routes. Let's make sure I put in my category over here. I did. db.category, category. Yep. Cool. All right. So that's your category controller, and we'll test all of these out in the next coming weeks. Let's see. The menu route is going to be pretty easy, so let's knock out that one next, and then we'll call it a night. New file menu.controller.js. And again, this is going to be very similar. There's no validation results for this. The only thing we really care about is the menu items. So let's add that. And the menu route only consists of get menu. So we'll do exports.getMenu. It's going to be asynchronous. It's going to include a request and a response. And all you're going to do is similar to the top one that we have here, but we're going to pass in simply the menu item. So we're going to say menu items is going to be equal to menu items.findAll, where category ID, and I believe it's called, yep, there it is. So it becomes request.params.category ID. Pass back the menu items. That's it. Done. That's a pretty quick route. Let's clean you up. That's not a valid comment anymore. And there's our menu. So that will handle all of our menu pieces. Let's take a look at the next one. We got order routes, we got menu, we got reservation, and we got user. Now, the user ones are pretty easy. Let's see if we can knock that out pretty quick. User.controller.js. Let's knock those out pretty quickly. We do need the following pieces. Let's create our user equals require models dot user. So there's our user. Now for our token, we should keep the token in the same spot. So you know how we have our auth utilities? We should just keep this secret consistent. So let's create a function so that we don't have to go anywhere and we can just access our secret in just one spot. So let's create our JSON web token here. We'll say export and we'll call it create token. And our create token will accept our user. Now if this was TypeScript, we would give it a type, but we're not in TypeScript. And what you're going to return is you're going to return a JSON web token. You're going to sign it, and you're going to sign it and include in it the user's ID, which is user.userID, and the user.email, which means that we're going to need to change you over here, because it's not going to be decoded.id. It's going to be decoded.user ID, because that's what we're encoding. So we're actually encoding the user ID, and user email. We're going to then include the secret, and we're going to say that it expires in like a day. What are we going to be about? Yep. I guess we need to give it, since it's an object, we need to tell it the property or the key. So yeah, let's keep it ID and let's keep it email. So we'll change you back to ID. Voila. So that'll create our token, and it's been exported as well. So then we come back over here to our user controller, and we'll create a function up here. We actually don't need a function. Yeah. So let's go ahead and then to create a user, we'll do 2, at least for now, before we close it out. We'll just do 1. We'll do the register user to start. So we'll do our exports.register user. It's going to be equal to an asynchronous function again. We have a request and our response. Now again, we have a bunch of validation errors in here. Or validators in here. So we need to make sure that we get them. We'll include our validation result from the request. So that'll gather all of the errors from it. If there are any errors, so if the errors are not empty, we're going to return res.status 400, and we're going to send back these errors as errors errors.array. Cool. So that's our errors. Let's go ahead and try to create the user. So there's our try. Oops, let's put you on a new line. And we'll keep our catch the same. Rather than play weird games, let's just copy and paste. That way we don't have to worry about accidentally messing it up. Save. I think I have I see. I have a curly bracket that's out of place. There we go. So again, same rules as we did last time. Separating off in the new lines is going to be equal weight. User.create. And we'll just pass in the request.body. And then we'll return. And now here's the thing. We're going to need to create a token with the user. So, excuse me, we'll say const token is going to be equal to create token, and we'll pass in the new user. And then what we'll return is a 200 if we're good. And we'll send back, we'll send back the user, which is going to be equal to the new user, and an access token, which is going to be the token itself. Now we can kind of put these all into one long line, but we don't need to. But this should create our initial register user controller. And now come over to user route. Validate that. And then when we create the other two, everything will kind of come into line. All right. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me on this Friday night. I hope everyone has a happy Easter for those who celebrate it, and a good weekend in general. I will see everyone on Monday, where we'll finish some of these routes, and we'll try to knock it out. So please let me know if you have any questions. Have a good evening. Take care and be safe.